just have one thing for all of you. This morning, the number of Americans on insured unemployment hit the lowest level since 1970, lower than any year of the presidencies of Reagan, H.W. Bush, W. Bush, or Trump. Today's weekly UI data is consistent with a job market where unemployment is low and people can seamlessly find jobs. That's not all what a recession labor market looks like. We brought unemployment below 4% 4 years faster than forecasters thought was possible before we passed the American Rescue Plan. We have added an average more than 400,000 jobs per month in recent months, and as we make a transition to steady and stable growth over the course of the next year, even something closer to the range of 150,000 jobs per month would be consistent with an unemployment rate as low as it is now and a sign of a healthy economic transition. With that, Amr, you want to kick us off?
Yes, thank you. On the Supreme Court decision today on New York's concealed carry law, is the administration concerned that, and this comes, on the cusp of major legislation here in Washington, but I was wondering, is the administration concerned that for whatever efforts you might make on gun legislation, we're now in an era of a conservative high court that's going to probably be conservative leaning for a while, that is oriented toward gun owner rights. Are we now in a period where, for whatever the president may try, that gun owner rights are just going to be expanded?
Well, let me just say that we are disappointed by the Supreme Court's ruling today. The Second Amendment, as you've heard the president say, is not obsolete and permits common sense gun regulation. Justice Department defended New York's concealed carry law, which had been in place since 1911 and imposed only a modest burden on most gun owners. The law applied only to handguns and public places and contained an exception for people who could establish an actual articulable need for self-defense. Despite the setbacks, the president earlier urged states to continue to enact and enforce common sense laws to make their citizens and communities safer for gun violence. As it relates to what's happening in Congress right now, we think that's separate and apart. Clearly, that is a bipartisan effort. The president is encouraged by what he is seeing. The culture vote happened today, so it's moving along in the right direction. Look, when the president went to Uvalde, when he went to Buffalo with the First Lady, those are trips that he does not want to do again. The president understands he's had a long career in doing gun reform and ending gun violence since he was a senator. We have not seen this type of bipartisan type of coming together to push this legislation in decades. So we are definitely encouraged by what we're seeing, and the president wants them to move quickly so he can get to his desk and he can sign that.
If I could ask just one more.
Sure.
Secretary Granholm met with oil executives today. I guess as peace between the administration and the oil executives broke out, and more importantly, some concrete ideas come out of this meeting. And finally, just why did the president, he stopped by the wind executive meeting we were just in, why did he spend some time with the oil executives?
Well, let me take your first question, and I have a bit of a readout for you here on the meeting. So at President Biden's direction, Energy Secretary Granholm, who was in front of you all yesterday, met with the CEOs and executives of the 7 major U.S. oil companies this morning at the Department of Energy headquarters in Washington, D.C. The meeting was a productive dialogue focused on creating an opportunity for industry to work with government to help deliver needed relief to American consumers. The Secretary highlighted the fact that the U.S. has achieved record oil production under the Biden administration, and that President Biden is taking historic actions to add to that supply. So the Secretary made clear that the administration believes it's imperative that companies increase supply of gas, and she reiterated that the President is prepared to act quickly and decisively using the tools available to him as a appropriate, on sensible recommendations as well. So this is an ongoing dialogue. I think you've heard, some of you may have heard from the oil companies themselves saying it was productive. And so what Secretary Granholm has called on is for her team to continue having conversations with the oil companies. As it relates to your second question, look, the president, it was a stop by. This is something that he does very often. It was there were governors in that meeting who were virtual and in person. So we see this as a part of his schedule where there was actually a meeting here at the White House.
Just to follow on that, you described this as a productive dialogue. They're going to continue to have ongoing conversations, but should we take that to mean that there were no sort of concrete steps taken? I mean, yesterday you said that the hope was that some solutions would come of this. Were they able to identify and agree on any solutions?
Yeah, I think what I was saying and Secretary Granholm was conveying as well, this is a first step. With a continued dialogue. Clearly, we want to come to solutions, and I think there's going to be multiple other steps to get there. Look, the president asked Secretary Granholm to do this so that ideas can come forward, and hopefully we can get to a solution. We want oil company to get to a higher capacity. That's what we're asking for, so that we can bring down gas prices, as you know, as we have been saying. So they're going to continue to have dialogue, and hopefully we get to a point where there is a solution and we can figure this out together.
And on the Supreme Court, as we await a decision on Roe, you've said that the administration is looking into options for executive action. I understand you're not ready to detail what those might be, but does the administration have executive actions that are ready to go that we could expect to see if and when a decision is announced?
So I appreciate the question, and it's an important question because this decision that we are all anticipating coming forth is going to change so many people's lives, take away women's rights. So we understand the question. We are just still trying to go through and having that discussion to see what our options are before we move forward. We don't want to get ahead of the president, clearly, but if and I've said this before, if indeed there is the Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision overturns Roe, we will ask Congress to restore Roe.
And just to be clear, will the president accept this decision as legitimate, even if he disagrees with it?
It's going to come from the Supreme Court, so it's going to be a decision that we certainly are going to respond to. So I'll leave it at me. It's just like any other Supreme Court decision, just like the one that they did today on guns. So as we know, the draft was leaked, so we can't really, we don't want to speak to that too much until there's an actual decision, which we know is supposed to be coming. So we're all, just like you, waiting to see when that happens. But in the meantime, we're doing our due diligence to be prepared. I just don't have anything for you at this time.
Thanks. Back to the gas taxes. I see you have a
Oh.
graphic up there on the
Oh
screen.
my gosh, I have a graphic.
Was the president surprised or disappointed by the lukewarm reaction that his gas tax holiday proposal got on Capitol Hill?
So I just want to step back for a second because this is very important. So the president wanted to be sure and wanted to find a way to simply and find a straightforward way to give consumers relief at the gas pump. The next 3 months, this is a 3 months, 90-day suspension on the gas tax, a gas tax holiday, as we all know it's called. And it's an important time during when people are driving a lot around the country, visiting their families, going on vacation. And so, it is important to give people a little bit of relief. If you think about it, on the federal level, that's 18 cents. He also called on states. We've seen some states. This is one of the states here, Maryland, do the same, and the average amount in states is about 30 cents. So already you're at 48 cents right there, almost 50 cents. That matters for people. That matters for people like teachers, like healthcare aides, like construction workers, like plumbers, who spend a lot of time driving from one place to another as part of their jobs. That's going to make a difference. And if the oil refineries do do their part, we're looking at $1 being taken off per gallon. So that matters, and we know it works. We know the policy works. I mentioned Maryland up here. Connecticut has done the same. Georgia has done the same, suspended their gas tax, and most of their tax relief was passed to consumers. And as you see from this chart here, you see when it was, here's where it was when it was enacted, and then it dropped. And then when it ended, it went back up. So it did make a difference. So President is calling on other states to take similar measures, and for Congress to suspend the national gas tax on oil companies to pass that relief on to consumers.
But Maryland's now actually getting ready to increase its gas tax next month, I guess, to make up for some of the revenue that it lost when it imposed this gas tax holiday. And given the level of ambivalence or opposition on Capitol Hill, how hard is the president willing to fight to try to convince Congress to change its mind?
This is important to the president, which is why he asked Congress to take this on. This is the way that we see it is a simple, fast way to give American families, the American public, a little relief for 90 days. As you know, there are plenty of legislation that's on the Hill right now that talks about cutting taxes. This is one of them. This is something that's simple, that's easy, that's 90 days during a critical period for the American public.
So he's going to keep fighting for
He's
it.
going to keep fighting for it. We think it's a simple thing to do, and he's going to keep fighting for it.
Supreme Court follow-up?
Sure, I wanted to go a little bit deeper on the trip or the ramifications of it. The president heads overseas at sort of a thorny time for his domestic agenda. You know, the gas tax holiday, there could be the first movement on gun reform in a generation. We're all waiting the Supreme Court decision. Is there any concern about his ability to shepherd his domestic agenda from 4,000 miles away? Is there anything different being done, given how many balls are in the air at the same time?
Look, we believe that a president could do his job any place, anywhere, at any time. So that is not a concern for us. Clearly, yes, to your point, Cleve, there is a lot going on in the world, but that is what is expected of a president. There are always multiple issues, sometimes multiple crises that a president has to deal with, but it doesn't stop them from doing the work that they need to do. What he's doing abroad, as you heard from my colleague, is critical, is important. That leader-to-leader engagement, talking to our NATO allies, being there at the G7, especially what's going on with Russia's war, for the president to be there and to continue to be a leader in bringing those countries together and talk about real issues that matter to all sides is also an important important agenda for the president to continue to move forward.
And to the second question, is there anything special or different being done about this trip as opposed to other foreign trips?
I mean,
given how many things are,
No, not at all. We're moving forward like we do with any Oconus trip that we have had. I think this is, I've lost track, maybe the fourth or fifth trip, as you guys are probably keeping track better than I am, that the president has done. And during a time, I mean, this past year and a half has not been an easy year. The president walked in having to turn back on the economy, if you will. He walked in having to deal with a COVID crisis, a pandemic, once in a generation pandemic. So he has had to deal with multiple things on his plate. So this is just part of another trip that he's gone on. Let me try. Go ahead, Pete.
Thank you, Karine. The president isn't really doing everything he can to bring gas prices down, is he?
I feel like is there something else to the question?
Oh, there's a lot to the question.
Oh, okay. Well,
for example,
yeah.
as you mentioned earlier, he's meeting today with people installing offshore wind equipment, but not oil and gas CEOs who are rarely ever in town, but they are today. So how did that help lower gas prices?
Well, the president has done so let me step back for a second.
But no.
No,
meeting with offshore wind
you're
folks
asking
and
me.
not with gas.
You're asking
oil
me
and
the
gas
question.
CEOs. How does that lower gas
Peter,
prices? You said
Peter,
he's done everything in his power. They were a mile away.
Peter, you're asking me a question. May I answer?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go. I just want to take us back a second on how we got here, right? So we have seen gas prices go up by $2 a gallon. One of the reasons we have seen that, the reason we have seen that is because of Russia's war in Ukraine. And once that happened, once we saw what that impact was going to be, the president took action. He took action. He made a historic choice to tap the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 1 million barrels a day, and that was for 6 months. And that helped blunt the impact of what we're seeing right now with prices going up. So that matters. The ethanol 15 that the action that the president took, that matters because it's going to bring down gas prices in gas stations, over 1,000 gas stations across the country, including the Midwest. That matters. And so the president is trying to figure out and take steps in how we can bring the gas prices down. And we have a high level of oil production. So what we are asking the oil refinery companies to do is to take that production, turn it into refine that oil so that there is capacity. We are not at capacity right now, and it does matter that the Secretary of Energy, which is her purview, that is her portfolio, to meet with these oil execs, that she does on pretty regular basis.
But your point was about how we got here. The president said, as a candidate, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Aren't some of those things that would bring the price of gas down now?
Let me tell you how we got here, since you just said how we got here. Due to a decreased demand of the start of the pandemic, U.S. oil companies reduced production and refinery capacity, which is what I was just saying, Peter. Refiners, for instance, cut their capacity by more than 800,000 barrels per day in the year before the president took office. Oil production is now back to near pre-pandemic levels. In fact, we produce more oil in the first year of the president's administration than in the first 2 years of the previous administration. And we are on track to set a new record for oil production next year this time. But oil refiners have still not brought refinery capacity back online. At the same time, as I was just stating to you about Putin's war, Putin's invasion of Ukraine disrupted the global oil supply, and gas prices have gone up nearly to $2 since the beginning of the year before the invasion. President Biden has taken historic actions again to alleviate the pressure and to blunt what the impacts that we have seen because of Putin's war, and that matters, and that's what the president has been focused on.
Okay, and the president yesterday was talking about this transition to greener energy someday. A lot of people can't afford a $60,000 electric car, and they also are having a hard time affording gas right now. That sounds like a painful transition. So how much of that kind of pain is the president okay with?
No, that transition, we are in a transition to clean energy. That is something that is important. It is going to create jobs. When you think about electric vehicles, it is going to give families some tax credits. It's going to be really important to have.
Who can afford an electric car? The average price is $61,000.
Well, we're going to continue to move forward with what we have put forward, the bipartisan infrastructure.
$5 gallon gas or a $61,000
That is
electric
not,
car?
first of all, that's apples and oranges. It's not the same. What we're trying to do right now is to deal with an acute problem right now, which is why the president, again, asked for a 90-day suspension of the gas tax holiday. It is going to make a difference. Peter, we're talking about 18 cents on the federal level. We're talking about an average of 30 cents on the state level. And if the oil refinery does their job, if they do what we are asking them to do, which is put their profits back in so that gas prices can go down, that's almost $1 per gallon. That matters. That matters. That matters to teachers. That matters to home health care aides. That matters to construction workers. That matters to plumbers. That matters to lifeguards. Those are the people that, and many others, who are going to feel this in a way that will give them relief at the pump. All right, we're done.
Supreme Court call
On the Granholm meeting, the refiners wanted to dissuade the White House from any sort of ban on fuel exports. Did Granholm agree to that?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. Can you say that one more time, Steve?
Ban on fuel exports. The refiners don't want that. Was that discussed at the meeting today? Did Secretary Granholm agree to set it off the table?
I can tell you, Steve, that decision has not been made. There's no decision on that at this time.
And secondly, on the gas tax holiday, has the president talked to lawmakers today about this to try to get them on his side?
So I don't have any meetings to preview for you at this time, but we are going to, our Office of Ledger Affairs is in constant communication with folks on the Hill. So that is going to be an ongoing conversation. And the president, this is something that the president thinks is going to be really important for the American people, to give them that relief, a little bit of breathing room, as you hear the president. I'm going to just take a couple more.
On refinery capacity, refineries right now are operating at about 93-94% capacity. When you talk about asking them to increase their capacity, bringing other refineries online is not as simple as flipping a switch. Do you want them to take 93-94% up to 98%? How are you guys thinking through the problem as it exists in terms of what they can do?
So there's a difference between the share of existing capacity being utilized and the amount of total capacity available. The overall capacity of the U.S. refining industry fell due to the pandemic, which is what I was going through earlier, and that capacity has not been brought back online even as consumers' demand has returned thanks to the president's recovery plan. So the president is calling again on U.S. refiners to increase capacity and output in the near term and making clear he is committed to using all reasonable tools and authorities as appropriate to help. And so there is a difference there. And so we're asking them to increase that capacity, which we have not seen yet.
Bringing us back online, one of the issues has been, willing to invest or on the CapEx side. Is the administration looking at anything on the regulatory side they think they can do to help that process along?
So I don't have anything here to share on what else we might be looking at. Again, the president is willing to use his executive authorities. We just haven't made a decision. We want to come to a resolution here or a solution. That's why Secretary Granholm had this meeting today. Where they're going to continue to have the discussion. And so that's what we would prefer. And so that's where the direction that we're going. At the same time, making sure that, the gas tax holiday, making sure that we're doing other things as well to do our part. Again, the gas tax holiday is a one of the solution, right? It's not the whole thing. We've done a series of things, and the president's going to continue to see what else he can do to give relief to the American people. Go ahead. I'm just going to take a couple more.
Does the administration have any response to Intel announcing that it is indefinitely delaying the groundbreaking of its very large semiconductor facility in Ohio?
I don't have any more information on that. I heard that reporting. I would have to check in with our team, but I don't have anything to share from the podium today.
One of the things that has come up before today's meeting with Secretary Granholm was Jones Act waivers. Is that something that was discussed in the meeting, or do you know if that's still on the table for the president?
I don't have more to share from the meeting, from what I just read out.
So we don't know whether it was...
I just don't have anything from what I just read out.
But the president hasn't ruled it out?
I just don't have anything for you right now, Josh.
Okay, and going to Bill's question, part of the reason capacity has shrunk is these facilities are being converted to produce, or some of them are being converted to produce renewable diesel instead of petroleum-based fuels. Others are simply, old. They're like old cars been taken off the road. They can't just turn on again. So do you think those conversions should be reversed or halted, or do you think the refiners are overstating the sort of pain that they'd have to go through to turn on some of these plants again?
What we believe is that they are not operating at full capacity. That is what we believe, and so just to give you a little bit here, and I said this yesterday, I'm happy to share it again. As of yesterday, I said crude oil prices have dropped by nearly 15% from 2 weeks ago, but prices at the pump have barely budged. The last time the price of crude oil was $110 a barrel, and the price of gas was $4.60 a gallon. Today, it's about 35 cents higher. That difference is a result of companies' record high profit margins for refining oil. Refinery margins have tripled since the beginning of the year. It's just the first 3 months of this year, the biggest oil companies made $35 billion, 4 times what they made in their first quarter of last year. We want them to put their profits back into refining oil so that we can bring prices down. And that is what we're seeing. There are 9,000 approved drilling permits that remained unused. So there are things that could be done that we are just not seeing happen. This is why we're having the conversation. This is why the president wrote the letter. I'm just going to try and get other questions.
On the G7 very quickly, one of the things the president has tried to do is boost gas shipments to Europe that aren't coming from Russia. Is there any discussion about that we should expect at the G7, or is that more of a medium-term thing?
I just don't have more to add. I don't want to get ahead of what the agenda is going to be on G7. No problem. Thanks, Josh. Go ahead.
In terms of ensuring that savings from any sort of gas tax holiday would be passed along to the consumers, Secretary Granholm seemed to say yesterday that the administration, at least at first, would be relying on asking them, like, just dialogue with these companies. Is it the White House's view that that is the only option to actually ensure savings are passed along to the consumer, or is there anything Congress could mandate or any regulatory action you could do to force those companies?
I mean, I can't speak to what Congress could do to mandate it. Here's what we know. We know that this has worked. It's worked in Maryland. It's worked in Connecticut. It's worked in Georgia. Maryland and Georgia are Republican governors who have made that decision, and consumers have felt the relief. So it's doable. We have examples of doing that, and so we're going to, like Secretary Granholm said, we're going to talk to the companies and make sure that the families and American people should feel that directly. They should not be holding on to any of the funds, any of that 18 cents on the federal level.
At this point, though, is that the only option for the administration?
At this point, that's basically what Secretary Granholm stated is where we are at this point.
On expanding capacity of refineries as well, you've talked about the need to do that, but there are some options the administration could take. There's a refinery that has had plenty of accidents in the past, has sparked environmental concerns, and some have said the administration could also loosen permit regulations. This refinery is in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. It's had environmental concerns in the past. Would the administration consider loosening any permitting regulations for refineries that have had environmental concerns to expand capacity?
We don't have anything to share on the 2 points that you just made. All I can say is the president is willing to use his executive authority to do what he can to give relief to the American public. Right now, we're focused on calling on Congress to do the gas holiday tax, or the gas tax holiday, and also having this conversation with Royal Refinery to make sure that they are refining that crude oil that is at a high level that they can do to help bring down gas prices. I'll take one last
Supreme Court follow-up.
I'm trying to call. I've never called on you before.
Thanks, Karine. I know you've addressed this a little bit before, but I'm wondering if you can kind of quantify how much of these January 6th hearings the president's been watching and what his overall reaction.
So I can say that the president catches it from time to time. He has a busy schedule, obviously, and we have said this before, and keeps updated on what's happening. We'll just continue to reiterate that what we saw on January 6, 2020 was one of the darkest chapters of our nation, and it was a brutal attack on our democracy, a brutal attack on law enforcement, and we believe that Americans should be watching and paying attention to learn exactly what happened on that day. And we have full confidence in the January 6th Select Committee and the work that they're doing. Okay, thanks, everybody. Be back tomorrow.